Scalability Suite V10. This is for JuiceIT Virtual. So let's kick off and start. My name's Anthony Spiteri. I'm a global technologist in product strategy at Veeam Software. I am also, let's just start again because I can edit this. Hey everybody, my name's Anthony Spiteri. I'm a senior global technologist in the product strategy group at Veeam Software, and today I'm going to be talking about V10 Veeam Availability Suite. So just to kick off, I'm going to start and talk a little bit about Veeam's vision. And with Veeam's vision, we're going to talk about cloud data management. And central to that is your data. So Veeam is very big about the fact that your data is really your data. So when we look at this circle, this slide, what we can see is that it starts with your data. And then around that, we obviously know that data is being generated in different ways. When we look at private cloud, when we look at public cloud, even at home at the moment, when people are sitting there working from home, we're creating data in different ways. And that data is growing. But central to that is the understanding that everything that is to do with cloud data management starts with your data. As we go around the circle, you can see that everything works its way around left to right, starting with backup and recovery. We are very cognizant of the fact that at Veeam, backup and recovery is first. Okay, it starts with backup, and that's very important. It's always been our way. When we look at governance and compliance, we're talking about understanding where your data is, where it sits, where it gets created, where it eventually will be. Orchestration and automation. Okay, doing more with your data in smarter ways. So obviously Veeam has the ability to leverage APIs, to leverage our PowerShell, to get together with third-party applications, infrastructure as code, whatever it might be, to leverage automation and orchestration. And then monitoring and analytics. Very important to understand what your data is doing, where it's living, trends in that data as you go along in your life cycle. And then finally, and more importantly, with regards to where Veeam is going in the future, is cloud mobility. Understanding that today your data is more mobile than ever, and the ability to create data on premises, either in the public cloud, but then having the ability to shift that workload through portability to anywhere that you want. So critical there. And when we look at Veeam with regards to a platform, we now talk about it holistically as a complete platform. So when we look at this, we look at the fact that we start with backup and replication, and always have been. Again, backup is central. We were the first to put in replication and backup together in the same software for the same license, so you get that regardless. Looking above there, we're obviously covering a lot of these new endpoints that we were talking about where data is being created with regards to cloud, SaaS, virtual and physical. We've talked about monitoring analytics, and underpinning this all is our universal storage APIs. When we expand this slide a little bit, we can see that, again, we're covering multiple ecosystems here and multiple partnerships. So at the top there, we cover cloud-based workloads on Azure, AWS, IBM Cloud, and also, very importantly, our Veeam service providers as well. Software as a service, covering Office 365 and OneDrive. Virtualization, where we started, we don't lose the sight of the fact that we started with VMware, supporting Hyper-V and Nutanix. And then physical workloads, we're talking about real machines here, servers that haven't been virtualized, but also endpoints, and looking at Oracle and Solaris, AIX as well. Underpinning all that, I mentioned this ecosystem of storage. So now, traditionally, we worked beautifully with partners like Dell EMC, Fujitsu NetApp, but what we did with the Universal Storage API was we extended that SDK to our partners to be able to get them to develop more rapidly integration into our software. And that's really important there, because what that means is that we can validate a number of these per year and pump them out a little bit quicker. And then object storage. Object storage is obviously growing quite significantly in the world thanks to public cloud, but also we're cognizant of the fact as well that a lot of organizations are placing object storage on premises as well. So we obviously want to cover that at the same time. And then when we match that to the cloud data management platform, like we talked about, they all work in a certain way. So again, backup and recovery, cloud mobility, monitoring and analytics, orchestration and automation, governance and compliance. We'll talk about those as we go along. So just to start with here, let's have a look and see what Veeam's done in 2020 with regards to products and roadmap. We GA'd Veeam Availability Suite 10, including backup and replication V10 on the 18th of February. That's well out there in the wild now. It's doing really well. In terms of V11, we have that slated for an aggressive release, potentially looking at the end of the year, but obviously that is subject to final validation in terms of an ETA. We have got a technology preview out there for our V11 continuous data protection, which is quite an interesting feature, and a lot of people are waiting for that. Veeam backup for Azure, still in beta, actually, looking like it's going to GA sometime in May. And then our next iteration, V2 for Veeam backup for AWS. That again looks like it's going to have a May release date there. We released backup for Office 365 V4 recently, and Veeam Availability Orchestrator V3, which is another product that we have, is looking like it's going to be released in May or June later this year. And we recently GA'd our Veeam Service Provider Console V4, which is our service provider play and our total all-in-one management pack for our cloud and service providers. Looking at V10, let's dig into the V10 features specifically. Our top line features all revolve around these three things here. So enhanced and seriously powerful NAS backup, multi-VM instant recovery, and then protection of data. So looking to protect against ransomware or malicious attack with S3 Object Lock and our clouds here. And we'll dive into those a little bit later on in some more detail. Data backup, we've introduced a number of features in V10. So supercharged SAP and Oracle backup, so just expanding, again, that platform in terms of what we can actually protect wherever the data lives. We've put a lot of effort into Linux in this version here. So we've extended scalability to ensure that you can back up MySQL and Postgres a lot better without using pre and post thaw scripting, which is very important. And also done a lot of work around snapshot free, so less impact on the storage. It's very important when you're looking at backups because you don't want those snapshots to grow if there's a high rate of change. We've done a lot of work around snapshot free backup there. In terms of recovery, we're going to go into this a little bit more, but we've enhanced our instant VM recovery to a level where it's actually extremely useful and so much better than what it was in previous days. Not that it wasn't better, but we've enhanced it quite a bit and spent a lot of time in R&D getting that better. Again, focusing a little bit more on Oracle, done a little bit more work with extending it beyond RMAN to really help you publish, export, and redirect Oracle databases. And then again, looking to do database-based snapshots as well with zero impact, so following on from the previous point that I made earlier. In terms of smarter data management, we have released a new version of Nutanix AHV, which is a separate entity to Veeam Backup Replication itself, but basically plugs in now with its separate installer. So it's more integrated than ever into the Veeam Backup Replication console. We've done a lot more work on integrating NAS, so a few more insights into the reporting there. Activation of data, very important, and I'll spend some time talking about how we're activating data a little bit later on. And then again, a little bit more work in regards to how we actually create GFSs, how we do instant copies of the data on primary jobs and whatnot. So, we've done a little bit of work to make those more efficient based on client feedback. In terms of backup and recovery, if we have a look here, Veeam started with backup again. I've mentioned that a couple of times. We've always had this intuitive backup and instant VM recovery that just works with application aware program protection in there. We have very, very good automated backup testing and validation with our data labs. That again has been in there from multiple versions ago. Probably an underused feature of ours, but certainly something which we continue to enhance. So if you guys are looking to look at validation for your backups in an automated way, data labs is the thing. And then scalability. So, we've always been flexible and scalable. This has always been something that Veeam has an advantage of. Being software-driven, hardware agnostic, it gives us the ability to scale quicker in software, which is a lot more powerful and a lot more scalable than looking at doing that with particular hardware. So, when you're locked into a particular appliance, it is actually harder to scale that hardware appliance than it is just to deploy a couple of proxies and scale up that way. In terms of enhanced recovery, I've mentioned this before, but what have we done? So we're continuing to focus on this. And again, this is our patented technology that we released a few years ago, or actually quite a few years ago now, in our early versions, and it was an innovative market-leading feature at the time. What we decided to do in V10 was look to enhance the engine that underpins it to give it more performance. So what we're doing is we're looking to instantly recover multiple VMs at once and individual virtual disks. And in doing that, do it quicker through enhanced performance and scalability. And mind you, this is all done in software. So again, without the need for expensive hardware, expensive appliances, you can get that same level of parallel instant recovery through software without having to rely specifically on SSDs. We do a lot of work in memory, so it's a really critical piece that we've tried to work on and enhance. Not only that, but we've also increased the ability to basically do an instant recovery of any backup from any platform. Okay, so basically now you can instant recover whether it comes from a cloud-based machine, a virtual workload, physical workload to vSphere. So that's a really cool feature of that. So think about a virtual physical desktop that's being backed up by a Veeam agent. As long as you bring that in to the Veeam backup replication system, you can then right-click and do an instant recovery of that particular laptop to vSphere, which works pretty well. In terms of NAS, so again, flexibility is key. We always talk about flexibility as being crucial to Veeam. When we look at this, the flexibility that we decided to do, so when we released this particular feature in V10, we didn't want it to just be a tick box feature. We wanted to have some level of differentiating factor in the market, and certainly the flexibility, again, being hardware agnostic, universal in the approach, has given us an advantage, we believe, here. So we can back up any NAS that is presented via an SMB share, NFS share, a Windows file server, or a Linux file server. So that's important to understand that we're not using the traditional style of NDMP backup. We're basically doing this in a very enhanced way and covering all of our bases here as well. The change file tracking is critically important to the way that this performs with regards to incremental backups. We're very proud of the fact that when we put this into market, we've had some great feedback on the fact that the initial backups are always going to take their time because you can't, beat physics when you're looking to back up huge amounts of data. But then it's all about what happens in those next, sorts of backups there. So in terms of, the incrementals and our fingerprinting technology, the change file tracking that we've built into this means that we get really, really quick incremental backups, which is so crucial. And then snapshot friendly. So no locks, a point in time and offloaded performance. Now this is also important. We've mentioned the fact that we're trying to offload. It's a recurring theme in V10. We're trying to take pressure off underlying hardware through software, and NAS is definitely no different there. In terms of cloud mobility, again, I've talked about that as a cornerstone of our cloud data management. Protection and portability of these workloads are critical across any data set. When you're looking at utilizing cloud-based storage, you're really looking to take advantage of its scale, but also you want to make sure that you're not costing yourself out of your operational windows, because the cloud is not a charity. We love saying that. So being able to build smarts into the product through mobility that allow you to optimize that data when you shift it through, and then licensing. Licensing is critical when you're talking about shifting workloads from platform A to B to C. And with the introduction of Veeam Universal Licensing, we've certainly enabled the protection of workload no matter where it actually is. Underpinning all this is the Veeam Portable Backup File Format, the VBK. And again, this is critical because this means that a VBK format, it's self-describing. You can back up a VM, be it on vSphere, Hyper-V, Nutanix AHV, any sort of agent. As long as you get it back into a Veeam repository, which is part of the VBK format, again, self-descripting, you can then basically unlock the portability and mobility of that workload, okay? We don't rely on any particular hardware. We're agnostic to any of that underlying storage that you guys want to use, and we're not actually tied to a file system either. That's critical. So not only is the portable format self-describing within itself, but it's transportable. If you get a new storage system because you're out of warranty or out of maintenance of one, you can just copy the VBK file from point A to point B, and it will just basically pick up and work. It's like a zip file. That's what I like to say as an analogy. If you think about a zip file from the 90s, you can take that today, 20, 30 years later, you can unzip that file and it still get the data out there. This is the power of the VBK format. In fact, we also have an extractor tool which is free as a standalone download now, which means that this data is always yours. If you remember, I talked about data being central to everything that Veeam does. So with that, when you get the VBK, you can right-click and then basically recover to AWS, Azure, Azure Stack, vSphere, Hyper-V. We don't care. Okay, you can take, again, a workload that was sitting on vSphere and recover it to Azure or AWS or whatever you want. So again, the portable data format is central to everything that we do. In terms of monitoring and analytics, we like to say that we have got a very complete monitoring and analytics tool, which is Veeam. And Veeam is kind of one of those products for us that is kind of undersold, undervalued. It's very strategic to us. We want to get it out there more. We want people to understand its value. Not only does it provide insights into backups and what's happening in your backup infrastructure, but critically for VMware and Hyper-V, you can get real deep insights into your actual platform and what's happening there. So looking at hosts, clusters, disks, all sorts of analytics that you can get out of your vSphere and Hyper-V platform, it presents them there. It then also offers business view, monitoring SLAs, it's got reporting capabilities, so it is indeed a very, very powerful tool. In terms of orchestration and automation, I mentioned this before, we've got a powerful set of PowerShell commands, and we're getting much better with regards to our API set. We're doing a lot of work around that. And when you look at our portfolio products in the platform with regards to something like backup for Office 365 or Console V4, that is built with an API first mentality. It's got a Swagger interface. And we're basically allowing our customers and our own internal people through our public GitHub page, Veeam Hub, to take examples of what can be done with automation and orchestration. So take infrastructure as code tools like maybe Puppet, looking at Terraform, Ansible, and be able to do things to automate the deployment of Veeam, but also ongoing steady state as well. So really cool there. And one of the actual features that we released in V10 is a data integration API. Again, data being central here, this is the biggest key. What this does, it effectively taps into our internal API set, you drive it through PowerShell, and it basically exposes backups and mounts backup folders and volumes directly to a Windows box, so you can do stuff with them. Okay, when I say stuff, I mean you can do things like analyze the data, you can classify the data, you can check to actually do some testing if there's ransomware, you can do business intelligence on that particular data set, all mounted directly from the actual backup itself. Now, having a think about that, what does this mean? It really means that in the past, while backup was effectively thought of as an insurance policy, and you didn't really make use of that data sitting there. Now we're talking about the activation of that data, making it work for you. So realizing a bit more investment into, a bit more into the investment that you've made into your backup and replication software and be able to do stuff with that data. So we think this has got a really huge future, and the data integration API in V10 is just the start of this. And again, it's leveraging third-party tools. You'll mount that volume to Windows, and then you'll use third-party tools to do that interrogation. And we've got some examples of what you could do around there in this particular slide. In terms of governance and compliance, again, it's pretty huge depending on where you are, GDPR and whatnot. It's obviously quite important to understand that your data does and can fall under some governance and compliance. We've got integrated ransomware detection with remediation. But more importantly, when you look at our NAS feature, this is a really great way to get some compliance and governance around how you would recover from a particular point in time if you were attacked with some ransomware. So again, in NAS, what we've done was we've introduced a slider, makes it very easy to go back and forward in terms of a point in time, just in case you got done by ransomware or whatnot, a malicious user. So again, it's just adhering to the compliancy that you might be under, that if you did suffer a ransomware attack, you can slide back pretty quickly, get all your data pretty quick as well. So just to finish off, that was a really quick look at V10, some top-line capabilities in there, deep diving into the NAS backup, the instant recovery that we talked about, and also ransomware and cloud tier. If you look at the whole feature set of V10, we added 100 plus new features. I'm not going to go through them all. There's some great features and enhancements that were released basically for everybody who uses our platform and for potential new customers. So with that, I'm going to finish off. Hopefully you've learned a very quick about what's coming in V10, what's to come, how we've enhanced the product, and more importantly, again, how Veeam is all about simplicity, reliability, flexibility, and how the cloud data management platform is central to everything that we're doing moving forward. Thank you.